Hey guys, David here and welcome to the FitPro Daily. Today we have another massive interview coming your way. Today we have Gary Mendoza and it's all about behaviour change. If you're brand new to the channel, don't forget you can always subscribe by clicking that big red button below. But let's dive straight into today's guest interview with Gary. Okay, good afternoon, guys, and welcome to this week's episode. Today we have Gary Mendoza, and from checking Gary out really quickly before doing this and seeing some of the stuff he posts, it's really different to the type of stuff that I would tend to talking about generating leads or making sales and stuff. Gary's topic, which obviously he's going to go into more detail about, is going to be unique. So welcome, Gary. How are things?
Good, thanks, Dave. Thanks for inviting me on here.
No problem at all. So the name of the podcast, or the name of the show, is called Behaviour Change. So before we actually get into that itself, how did you get started in the fitness industry?
I started 25 years ago. I was one of the first ever PTs in the UK, and I represented the UK at the first ever personal training convention in America.
Wow, okay.
So I've got American and UK qualifications as a PT, and that's kind of how I started out. And then I realised all my clients wanted nutrition advice, so I thought, I should stop blagging it and stop copying articles out of magazines. And so I went and did a degree in nutrition. Then I worked for Future Fit Training, who are most probably one of the biggest training organisations now, wrote all their nutrition courses. And they sponsored my PhD, which is a multi-dimensional for the treatment of male obesity in a community setting. Is the long-winded, basically men's weight management.
Yeah, wow, okay, yeah. So let's go right back to the start then. How did you know that your ideal client was more focused on work with nutrition? And at what point did you kind of niche down or more or less want to work with that type of person?
I think from working with them, I was getting results, but they were never super results, as I would want to call it, I guess. So I figured that I needed something else. And it certainly slowly dawned on me that the nutrition aspect was just as important as the actual exercise activity aspect. But I really didn't know enough about it. As I say, I was blagging it. I was actually writing an article in the local paper because I was based in Chester. So I was actually writing a regular column in there, and I used to put nutrition things in there. And when I look back at it now, you say, how did I get away with that almost?
Okay, yeah.
And that's kind of how I ended up in behaviour change, actually, because then I've worked with kind of nutrition and exercise and everything. And over the last, I suppose 10 years, it's occurred to me that actually the big thing that's missing for trainers is understanding how people make behaviour change. Because if you can't get them to do that, then having the nutrition and the exercise knowledge is useless because they're not doing the changes.
Yeah. So you're talking about, you might give them the plan and they'll stick for it for 1 or 2 days. Something comes up and then they just completely fall off the wagon, do you mean?
Totally, yeah.
Okay, so before we jump into that then, let's talk about some of the other stuff then. How did you get yourself into the newspaper? Because this is something that pops up quite a lot. People want to know how they managed to get into the press.
Right, well, because I represented Great Britain at this first ever personal training convention, I literally wrote to the editor of the paper and said, thought this might be newsworthy. I'm representing Great Britain as a personal trainer, and you've got to bear in mind back then, 25 years ago, you didn't have personal trainers in gyms, and the only people that had personal trainers were Hollywood celebs, basically. So it hadn't really even landed in the UK at that point. So it was fairly novel in that respect. And so I wrote an article about that. I took pictures. I had Deion Sanders, he was a dual sport star in America, in American football and baseball. And I've got pictures with him, so the paper loved that. And so I came back, I kind of gave them the bare bones, but they wrote it. And off the back of that, the editor said to me, would you be interested in kind of writing some kind of regular copy for us? And bearing in mind, I was rubbish at English at school, but I'm like, well, yeah, why not? I just kind of thought, if I'm being asked, it's such a great opportunity, because once you're in the paper, people just, your credibility goes through the roof regardless of your whatever qualifications. It's like, but he writes in the paper, he must know what he's talking about.
Yeah. And it was by simply just reaching out to the newspaper or the magazines and stuff. That is the way you managed to get in there.
I always tell people, I say journalists are inherently lazy. I said, so if something happens in your area that's got an exercise or a sport bias, or it's your area of expertise, just write something about it. Just give them kind of 500,000 words, send it in and say, this is my thoughts on it. I said, and if you do it regularly enough, they'll get used to seeing your name even if they never use it. And you can pretty much guarantee that at some point in the future they'll be thinking, who do we know that can write about this? And bingo, your name's there. And once you're in, that's it. I mean, as I say, once I'd done that one article, I was actually given my own column.
And that was literally what we talked about just before we pressed record on this call, was about how both of us, we produce content all the time. We're never always selling. We're putting content, free content, giving ideas, giving tips, giving advice. And then when people are finally ready to take that advice on, they'll reach out and want to actually work with us.
It's that kind of old sales adage about know, like, and trust. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that. It's like once people get to know you and then like your content, at that point they'll come to you for advice, and that's when you're more likely to kind of convert them into a client or whatever you want to look at it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So let's move forward then to Future Fit. I know there's going to be people watching this who may be at the start of their PT journey or the FitPro journey, and they thought, you know what, I would like to become a coach, a tutor to help the next generation of PTs. How do you move into that type of industry then, or the next stage up?
Well, I went with Future Fit because I applied for a job. Actually, I got poached, funnily enough. I was managing a gym. I was managing a gym in the Cotswolds for the Savoy Group, and I'd won an order for a complete refit, and it was Blackwoods was the name, the American name owned it, but it was like £1 million contract. So I went up to fitness industry show and did the old kind of handing over the check thing, the publicity thing. And whilst I was there, I just wandered around. I happened to go onto Future Fit store and kind of asked what they did and blah blah. And when they knew that my background was in PT and I had a degree, they said, are you interested in becoming a tutor? And so they basically headhunted me there and then. So I then just started. And the thing I liked about Future Fit, and do to this day, they're very professional. They tend to be industry leaders. So when I joined the company, they were the first company that were really doing NVQ and training in the workplace. And they carried that on now. And now they're very tightly linked with UK Active. They provide a lot of courses for them, and they're working very closely with SimSpa. So they've always been about raising industry standards, which I'm a big believer in. I think the level of training generally across the leisure industry isn't great in some areas.
Okay, yeah. So again, what you said there was you actually went to this stall and just started talking to them. Again, it's all about starting those conversations, which has led to these opens, these new positions and stuff, which again, so many people don't realize. They think they get the PT qualification and clients will come flocking to them. We have to be out there all the time.
I totally agree. Especially now with the advent of social media and everything online, you've got to have a presence. You've got to have a voice, and don't I did this when I started. I used to underestimate the skills I've got, and to some degree I still did it even once I had a PhD. And it's only because I've had other business people going, you're undervaluing yourself, you've got all this experience, you've got all these qualifications, you've got to tell people. So now I'll talk to anyone, I'll offer to do anything. I really don't, because I love what I do anyway, so it doesn't feel like a chore to do it. And just get out and talk to everybody and anybody. Try and collaborate. I'm a big believer that personal trainers should build kind of networks of collaboration. So it's taken me 10 years to learn it, I guess, but I've more recently started like doing my marketing, get somebody to do that for me, somebody to do my website, because yes, I could learn those skills, but actually my skills are in behavior change nutrition. And that's what I want to do. So I collaborate with people that I think are the best in the industry, and that works well for me, and it works well for them as well. So it's a win-win for everyone.
Definitely. And then just like this podcast, one of the reasons I set this podcast up was I can be assigned to these people as well. So like yourself, I've had Shane Nugent on, we've had Naomi Carson on, we've got Jonathan Goodman in a few weeks. By you being able to position yourself with these influential people, it instantly increases your presence as the type of person you want to be, yeah?
Yeah, totally, yeah.
Okay.
And as I say, don't be afraid to do it, because you might be new to the industry, but you're bringing something that's uniquely you. So find out what that is.
So before we jump into behavior change, anything else you'd like to talk about when it comes to actual generating leads for your business?
Now, I think the key thing I have learned is work with an expert. Don't try and learn it, because it's almost counterproductive. You're better off upgrading the skills you've already got and becoming the best at what you can be. Yeah. So you mentioned Shane. I always tell trainers, if you're going to try and do nutrition, work with Shane. Don't try and learn nutrition unless you're willing to go and do a degree. You've got somebody that's already world class there. Work with him. That brings you up to that level then.
Yeah.
So yeah, collaborate, I think, would be if it was one word, that would be it.
Perfect. Okay, so let's dive into behavior change. For myself and many people listening, what does behavior change actually mean?
It really means helping your clients modify their habitual everyday habits so as they adopt the type of lifestyle that will get them to wherever their goals are. And it's really, really important, talking about like recruiting clients. The behavior change skills I teach will help you recruit clients in terms of improve your communication, but most importantly, it helps you retain clients. Because if you're working with them and they're making these behavior changes, they're going to stay with your program. Whereas if you don't help them make these behavior changes, you might be giving them superb advice around nutrition, exercise, and everything else. But if they're not actually implementing that, they won't get the results. And if they don't get the results, ultimately they're going to go, it's not working for me, I'm going to knock it off. Okay. And so that's why I'm adamant that behavior change is a key skill that all trainers need.
So is there any rules to thumb, or is there any steps that PTs or FitPro should take on to really maximize behavior change when it comes to clients?
Definitely. I think they need to, all PTs learn the stages of change model. So you need to understand that, but now you need to understand the elements within it. So how do you take a client that's thinking about change to the next step, which is kind of preparing for change and then ultimately making a change? And so there are psychological theories within that implement each of those steps. And if you understand those theories, to some degree, you can kind of, well, you 100% you can measure where clients are on these various kind of theories in terms of, are they moving in the right direction? But you need to understand all the theoretical concepts that form around behavior change. So things like, how do you form a habit? Now, everybody talks about, oh, it's a habit and blah, blah, but not too many people realize how habits are formed, what we do to change a habit, and these type of things. People often think, oh, I've got bad habits, but I'm going to get rid of them. You can never get rid of a habit. It's ingrained in the brain. It's like a program. But what you can do is you can write a new program that overwrites the old one. But the old one is always there, which is why very often people will go back to like a smoker, stop smoking for 6 months and then slips back into smoking. All that's happened is they've tried to establish a new habit. It's worked for a while, but the old program's still running away there. And then something happens that triggers that old program and they go back to smoking.
That's really interesting, that then. So would you say, let's take, before we dive how we transition this for what we do in generating leads for clients, and somebody's actually signed up and they're working with you now, would one thing that might lead to failure is too much information at once? So if they come on for, say, a 6-week program, you just bombard with too much information and then that doesn't work?
It's a big mistake offering people information if you're not respecting their autonomy. So one of the things I teach is motivational interviewing, which is kind of it's just a better way of having a conversation. And what we do know from all the research evidence is that if you just give people ideas and do this, do that, do the other, it will go in one ear and out the other. Whereas if you offer advice with permission, the client is more likely to take on board. And whenever you do offer advice, try to offer choices. So rather than, right, this is the exercise we're going to do, because we want to get this done, it should be more along the lines of, we could do this exercise, or we could do this exercise, and possibly this one, or maybe you've got some ideas around what might work. Let the client feel that they're totally involved in the process, because that autonomy and that right to choose means they are far more likely to follow through with whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah. I can see how this works as well. So we used to run a football coaching business back in North Wales, and we had all these camps. And something we always had to tell the coaches was the way you speak to the children, the tones and how high or low your pitch, your voice is, will change how the child reacts to you. And I'm guessing this is exactly the same by coming to a certain level when you're talking to your clients, offering them to give their advice opens their mind up to actually wanting to accept the offering that you're giving them.
100%. Change is more effective when the client feels it was their idea in the first place.
Yeah.
And you'll know from a sales perspective, the best way to sell anything is to get the client to talk themselves into buying it.
I was going to go into all this stuff, right? I was going to kind of talk about first about how you take, when you want your clients with you, how do you then, is there anything else you want, before we talk into sales, and is there anything else? A client is with you now. How do you get the best possible results? Because we all work with clients. We have hundreds of clients every single year, but only 5 or 6 of those will get the best possible results. How do you take from maybe a 6% of 100 people, 6 people get really good results, to making you push into 10 to 15% of those people actually get an amazing result?
Right. Well, I'll treble those figures for you straight off. The success rate in my weight management program for my PhD was 86%. And we did the same in New Zealand, got exactly the same results. And the reason that percentage, completion and achieving end goal, which was either weight loss or reduction in waste measurement, was because we screened them psychologically to make sure they were psychologically ready to change. And they were only allowed to join the program if they were psychologically ready. And then what we did was, I screened them all the way through the program to make sure that their psychological readiness was increasing. And this is why I say to trainers, this is such a good retention tool, because if their psychological readiness is starting to drop off, that's an indicator to you that there's something in your program that's not working, and you need to intervene now and put it right. And so I always describe it as catching them before they fall. In other words, basically have a word before they just leave the program. And so you can do that. So it's a bit like kind of pre-qualifying them, I guess, in some respects. It's like, well, find out why they want to do your program. What are their reasons? Get them to voice them as well.
Yeah. So something we tend to do with our clients in the gym is every month we almost reset their goals. So if they're closing in on that 1 stone mark, maybe next month can we try and do the 1.5 by the end of next month? So is that the type of thing you're talking about then?
Goal setting is intrinsic to any successful behavior change program. If you look at all the research evidence, goal setting is absolutely crucial, but also the way you go about goal setting. Because too often people just get their goals and go, oh, I'm going to lose 1 stone in a month or whatever it might be. They haven't got ownership of that, because the trainer's most probably gone, right, this is what we should go for, I think, what do you think? And most clients are just going to nod, because it's like, well, he's the trainer, he must know best. So they've got no ownership of that goal straight away.
Yeah.
And the other thing is they've got no emotional investment in it. In other words, when they look in a month's time and they've lost that stone, what's that going to mean for them? How's that going to feel? How are they going to look? And so what I do when I work with clients one-to-one is I do what I call emotional anchoring. And it's giving that goal an emotional pull So as when they think about their goal, it kind of brings a smile to their face. It's somewhere they definitely want to be going.
Yeah.
And if you've done that really well, you can also get the clients then to use this in their favor, because now, let's say they go shopping and they've got to make a choice between a healthy choice and a not so healthy choice. They're kind of tempted by the not so healthy choice. But now what you say to them is, right, that's fine, because that's human nature. Ask yourself this question: is this moving me towards my goal or away from my goal? Now, if their goal's got a strong emotional pull, they will nearly always make a better choice. They'll make the choice that moves them towards their goal. And you can apply that in nutrition, you can apply that in exercise, in finance, in anything. If your goal is emotionally anchored, you'll tend to make better choices. If you actually and genuinely do it, ask yourself the question: is this moving me towards my goal or away from it?
For me, because we deal with sales and lead generation, so much of this is like flooding back, like, because obviously I let my trainers deal with the clients, but it's so key, the emotional side of it. So let's talk. We've done clients. Now we're in the sales consultation. How could behavior change, or the way you ask certain questions in the sales consultation, improve your conversion rates then?
Right, there's the first thing. Don't ask questions. Listen. Professor William Miller, who's one of the lead proponents of motivational interviewing, one of the things he's very fond of saying is, sometimes all people need is a good listening to. And so what we teach in motivational interviewing is, the client will start talking and they'll talk about, I don't know, I want to lose weight, I want to get fit. Now, generally what a trainer will do in that situation, the average trainer across the board, oh, well, we can do that. Yeah, we've got great equipment in here, and I know a great program, and I've got all these clients that have lost weight, and bombard them with all the good stuff, as I would call it. The problem is the client's sitting there not listening to any of that, because the client wants to talk about them and their problems. Now, if you sit there and reflect the information and show that you are really listening, the client should be doing most of the talking. And as I said to you previously, they will talk themselves into buying that membership, because they'll be sitting there going, well, yeah, I do need to lose weight and I'm going to need some help with that. So you hear this need, it's what we call change talk. So it's a desire. I want to, I need to, I have an ability to, I've done it in the past. So you listen out for that type of language, and you amplify it for them. So they're hearing their own reasons for why they need to join this gym or work with this trainer.
It is. And then as you're doing it, you're just guiding that interview process, or guiding the sales.
And that's the perfect choice of words. You're guiding.
Yeah.
A lot of trainers want to lead. Do this, do that, go there, do that, eat this, here's your meal plan. That's lead, that's directing. Directing doesn't work. It will work short term, but it won't work long term. Yeah. The opposite of that would be following, which would be everything the client says, oh yeah, we'll do that. Oh, I want to do this. Oh, that sounds like a good plan. We'll do that. Clearly that's not going to help, but your word's spot on, guiding. You're coming alongside your client, helping them on the journey and pointing out to them the different ways they can go, but ultimately they always make the choice.
Yeah. The two questions we tend to ask is what's stopping you from doing it yourself?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because it's an open question. They've got to start thinking.
And why is now a good time to start? Both of them open them up to the sale. They're basically telling you why they need your help. And then it's over to you not to mess that sale up from there.
But then the key thing then is, whatever the client comes back with, give it back to them. Yeah. So you said, okay, why do you want to join this gym, shall we say? I don't know. And they go, I need to get fit. I've got a wedding in 6 months. So rather than go, oh yeah, we can do that, I've got a program for that, what you should do is reflect that information. You've got a wedding in 6 months, and you feel that this might help you with that journey. They'll then come back with a load more stuff. So they're doing all the talking, and so you're not asking, because the temptation is to just ask question after question.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be doing that. One of the key things I always point out to trainers is, you've got 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth. Use them in that ratio, 80-20.
Yeah. And like you mentioned it a minute ago, and I was reading the book the other day on copywriting, and they were always talking about putting a financial value on the reason they're not achieving it. And again, it's the same for the emotional value. Put that emotional value onto it. What happens if you don't achieve it? Let them again tell you all this information, and then the sales should be there.
It's a key thing we never ask ourselves, or most people don't, when they're trying to make a decision, and it's called decisional balance. It's two psychologists, Janice and Mann, and they said that when we make a decision in life, anything, so it could be, shall I sign up with the gym or not, we weigh up the pros and cons. If the pros outweigh the cons, we go for it. If they're about here, if they're even, it's what we call ambivalence, and that is where motivational interviewing is powerful, because it can help shift that balance. But a key thing to think about is when people are making a decision, they normally make it in the moment. Whereas if you do what you've just said and said, right, okay, if you don't join this gym, what is things going to look like for you in 6 months? And they go, oh, I might be a bit fatter, or I might have a heart attack. I won't be able to play with the kids. And now suddenly they're seeing all the negatives of that. So what that tends to do is, if someone's ambivalent, sometimes just that, what I would call future thinking, it allows the balance to shift, because now they think, oh, I've never thought of that.
Yeah.
So getting people to think forward to the consequences of not doing something is actually quite powerful.
Okay, so let's take it a step further. We've talked about clients, we've talked about sales. How can we relate this now to generating leads? Because what you've said is a lot of type of stuff we talk about with generating leads. We run an advert to a cold audience, then we need to warm that audience up to get them to know you, and then we bring them in for the sales consultation. But what type of social media posts, phone call or text message techniques, email follow-ups, even the Facebook ad copy would behavior change work in?
It'll work in all contexts, but you need to know who your audience is, because the content really needs to be. So if I give you an example of like male weight management with my PhD, when you're thinking about men's weight management, there's a temptation to write a poster, I don't know, men's weight management program running, diet, you'll be new you, blah, blah, blah. The wording of that is critical, because men don't like the word diet. The word exercise has got negative connotations. So there are lots of elements that you've got to think about. Is this targeted to that audience, or is it too general? And I think a lot of trainers are trying to be too general, that I don't think they really know who their audience is. And if you don't know who your audience is, it's very difficult to target. It's basically the equivalent of putting adverts for children's TV on at 10 o'clock at night. It's like, why would you do that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's key all the time. So when we take Facebook ad clients on, one of the things we need to know from them is more in-depth information about one target audience, because there's no point putting an advert out, we're looking for people to come work with who want to lose weight, because that literally is somebody from the age of 16 all the way up to 97, 98, whatever you want.
Exactly. It's too much of a paintbrush approach, and you'll basically waste money doing that. It never will work.
Okay, so before we finish off and where people can find out more about you, is there any final tips on behavior change as FitPros, people that are listening and watching, could take from some tips or guidance that you could give quickly now?
Just, I would read one paper, because it will help you kind of get a bit of grasp, because it's a big field. Well, I've got the reference for it somewhere. It's called The Behaviour Change Wheel, a new method for characterising and assigning behaviour change interventions. It's a free paper, so you can get the full text if you just Google it. And the reason that's so powerful is it's looked at all the different theories, and it's come up with this one model which I think all trainers can apply, and it's called the COM-B model. And basically COM stands for capability, motivation and opportunity. So you can apply that in a sales setting as well, to be frank. Now, capability is their kind of, it's defined as the psychological and physiological capacity to actually engage in an activity. So it includes having the knowledge and skills. So when you're talking to a client, and it might be weight management, do they have that capability? Do they have the knowledge and skills? And that's something you can just find through general chat, really. So that's one side of it. The other side of that is opportunity. So then we're talking about, well, can they get to the gym? Can they afford to eat healthily? Do they know how to shop healthily? Are their peer group going to be supportive? Now, if you're kind of fairly confident from a conversation that they've got a degree of capability and they've got the right opportunities, that means they will then have the motivation to make that behavior change.
Yeah. And what does B stand for at the end then?
Behavior.
Okay.
So it's basically the way they word it is it's capital letters -B.
Okay, so Gary,
it's a very clever acronym.
How can people find out more about you then? What is it you actually offer or help people with?
Right, you can go to my website, which is sofcltd.com. I do courses in motivational interviewing and behaviour change. They're all online, and they're actually it's one of the first behaviour change courses to be certified by the Association for Nutrition. So it's a certified course for CPD. There's also online workshop e-learning for all the psychometric testing. So you can do all the psychometric testing of your clients to find out what stage of change they're in. And that's come directly from my doctoral research. And that was done with PTs. So it was done in the real world. It's not kind of academic stuff. And then I do one-to-one consultations. I work with quite a few elite athletes because I'm on the Sport and Exercise Nutrition Register. So I work quite a bit in elite sport as well. Yeah.
And I've noticed you've been putting quite a few videos on your YouTube channel as well recently.
Yeah, I've had to get more kind of savvy, I think, with social media because I just really wasn't putting a lot out there. And the lady I've been working with, and she's been brilliant for me, says you just got to get out there and put content out. It's all about content.
Yeah.
And I have to say it's been successful in terms of 2 of the courses have already sold out. So it does work. Just people are sometimes a bit skeptical about, if I just post, what difference does that make? It does.
Oh yeah, it makes such a difference. And this is something we're trying to teach people, especially in the portal, where it's not just a case of just posting anything. It's about posting the right type of posts that create engagement, but most of all, start conversation. Start a conversation with anybody, whether it's face-to-face or online. You should be able to guide them down the path.
Yeah, if they want to engage with you through whatever your post is, they will keep engaging from there on in because they're obviously interested in what you're doing.
Perfect. Thank you for your time. So, what a unique interview, okay? Slightly different to chasing leads and Facebook ads and the usual stuff we talked about. Really about behavior change and mindset. So it was really good for me to listen to, and I'm guessing a lot of you got a lot of value from that interview. So potentially press pause, rewind, go through it again, take some notes, and implement some of the stuff that we talked about during the interview. Again, if you're brand new to the channel, click that big red subscribe button below to subscribe and never miss another episode. Or if you want to find out more content that we have to offer on this channel, check out some of these videos just here. Anyway, I will see you all tomorrow. Cheers.